We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello everyone and welcome to Crime Unravelers, the Crime Traveller podcast, only on the We Made This podcast network.
Yes!
You're an idiot.
No, anyone panicking and going, what the hell? No, you are listening to Shipwrecked and Comatose. We just started figuring out names halfway through the series. It's fine.
I mean, it's a really good name if this was a Crime Traveller dedicated podcast rather than a poor excuse to talk about Crime Traveller because it's a Red Dwarf podcast.
Well, any excuse. And yes, I'm Matt Latham. I'm going to be your master of ceremonies for this and the next episode for our current soiree through the mid to late 90s with Crime Traveller. And with me are my two co-hosts, and increasingly probably, like, I forgot, what's the word? I've forgotten the word. Let me try this again.
Sexy.
No, not sexy. What's the word?
Oh.
Regretting, yes. Yeah, so firstly, I've got Mark Adams, who is probably regretting leaving me in charge. So, how you doing, Mark?
No, I quite like the name Crime Unravelers. I think we should go with it. So that amused me. Hello, Matt. I'm really enjoying our Crime Traveller journey. So
Yeah.
I'm actually delighted to be here.
Oh, that's great. In that case, if you quite like my ideas for kind of like Shipwrecked and Comatose spin-offs, I've got an idea for a podcast where I just talk to people while eating biscuits and talking about biscuits. Yeah, I've got a host.
I've totally guessed on that.
Oh, cool! You'll love the host. Calling it Hobnobbing with Hob Boldness.
Oh no, I've gone off it.
And enjoying watching this from the sidelines is Carl Bryan. How you doing, Carl?
Hello, I am loving this right now.
To calm Mark down, currently Hob is currently on like a kind of cruise. Well, I say cruise. He's just currently...
Hob Boldness has gone cruising. I had heard the rumours.
No, he's actually on a cruise, but I say a cruise, he's actually on a canal boat. And by cruise, I mean he accidentally stumbled and fell onto one. And yeah, that's I can't say anymore because of legal reasons. But yeah, so you're okay, Mark. So
I'm confused.
But we're here to talk about Crime Traveller. We're here to carry on. We're now over the halfway point. We're in the second half of the series, and for the next 2 weeks, you got me, regrettably. But yeah, so we're going to be here talking about episode 5 called "Sins of the Father," which aired on the 29th of March 1997 on BBC One, written by Anthony Horowitz and directed by Rick Stroud yet again. And in this one, we have a bit of a look into Slade's past, and we get to learn a bit more about him as a person and like his home, like not home life, but some of his family, and it's a very Slade centric episode. So, Carl, what was your initial thoughts on this one?
This is my favourite episode of the series so far. I just love it from start to finish. The plot's there. The acting is great. It's got one of the best guest appearances in the whole show. And I remembered this quite vividly from watching it the first time. And I think I've watched this. Obviously, we watched the episodes in advance of recording, but I've watched this episode in particular a good 3 or 4 times because it is one of my favourite ones.
How about you, Mark? You got a lot of little to...
Well, it's interesting because Sins of the Father, because there'd been such a heavy focus on Holly's father, when I saw the title, I was expecting it to be about Holly's dad, not Slade's dad. So you said it was a massively Slade-centric episode, and you're right, but I was expecting it to be a Holly-centric episode. So, yeah, it wasn't what I expected, but Carl's right, it's a great episode.
Yeah, and I think it helped. Yeah, I say I agree. I think I quite like it, and I think what it does, I think it helps kind of, if not level Slade, it adds it gives Michael French a bit more kind of, if not kind of testing the kind of emotional acting bits, it gives the show a chance to try and crack Slade as a character, so that he's not just kind of like, well, no, actually no, he still has an opportunity to be like the closest thing the UK has to a primetime action hero, but you get a bit more under the psychology of Slade. Yet somehow
I think that's fair, yeah.
Yeah, the show yet still manages to kind of keep him as like the cool, like Saturday Night lead, and it doesn't threaten that much kind of like emotional death. But we'll get into that. So yeah, so let's start with the world's, considering it's a good episode, with the world's kind of dullest opening moment, where Slade just walks into the office. Where Morris he walks past Morris, and he just smiling smugly that he's late. To which Slade replies with, "Do you know what I like about you, Morris?" "No, neither do I."
I hope we're picking up on the fact he has his own mug that it looks like he made himself at a craft day out that has Slade written on it.
Good.
I did not catch that.
I did, and it made me smile too.
Yes, bless him. Straight away, just slating Morris, and then I watched it. I tend to have it on in the background when we do these recordings, and I put the episode watching. It is up on YouTube. I believe we've mentioned that a few times. So I put the subtitles on, and when he comes in, Morris apparently says, "You're light, Slide."
You're light.
Damn it,
Wow.
Slide.
Wow. Oh dear.
But yeah, I kind of like the fact it's just the start of another day. Also, if Slade's late, Morris is just stood leaning against a window making coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like he's doing anything.
But yeah, so Slade grabs his mug, which I'm now just quickly doing the Carl Bryan trick of having the YouTube video playing, and now I can now see the kind of nice blue, kind of almost, probably did it when he was in a reception, like several years ago. Yep, he goes over to Nikki, and Nikki is reading a book on the psychology of inner city policing.
Now, I really liked this because it really highlighted the difference between the two characters, how Nikki is an academic that has come to policing, and Slade is more on-the-job maverick. Yeah. And again, within a minute, they've established that Morris is a bellend, Nikki is a bit sniffy, and that Slade is a maverick. And it's just really well done, and it doesn't feel exposition-y. It's just, this is a quick reminder of who our characters are. Let's get on with it. Yeah. It's great. It's really great.
And this also highlights one of the things I like about this series is Nikki reading the manual does play into something later. Nothing like huge, but something that when it does get mentioned again, you're going to go, oh yeah, he was reading the manual earlier. And it's so, as Mark said, casually dropped in as like Nikki's reading this manual. And it just shows, I mean, Anthony Horowitz has gone on to write many, many things. And it's just these nice little drop-ins that come back later and pay off that I love about this show.
Yeah, it's a nice little character bit. And yeah, I think it's kind of nice economic use of screen time, which, yeah, as Carl says, pays off. And talking about nice little subtle lines, I can't tell if this was subtle or not, but I think it's Michael French's delivery. So we see Chloe and Annett come up. Chloe and is it Annett or Annett?
Annett,
I believe, yeah.
The only reason I know that is because I watched one of the commentaries on Red Dwarf, and she said her own name, so I'm going with how Chloe Annett pronounces her own name.
Chloe Annett. Yeah.
Chloe Annett.
I called that on one of the episodes that they're currently airing on the time of recording. So I was like, oh yeah, Chloe Annett. So as Chloe Annett walks up, like Michael French kind of has like the most low key delivery of, oh, it looks like a real page turner. And as Holly walks behind him, and for some reason that made me laugh far too loudly than I perhaps should have laughed. It's a really crap pun.
Have I missed the pun?
Basically, Slade. Slade looks at the book, goes, "Oh, looks like a real page turner." As the character Holly Turner walks past him.
Oh, I missed a pun. Oh, I like puns as well.
But it's the thing is though, it's very, very low key. It's not built around that joke, whereas some people would do. It's like Michael, like you watch it, and then Michael French goes, "Oh, looks like a real page turner." It's just so low key done that, and I think hits the line just as Holly walks past him, and it's just very subtly, but like. I can't tell if it's clever or not, or it's just like Anthony Horowitz just saying, "Yeah, I'll add that in." And I got a feeling that perhaps it was supposed to be played perhaps a lot more kind of as a pun rather than as subtly as it is.
I hadn't spotted it, but now I love it even more.
So Holly and Slade interact, and I didn't get if they mentioned anything in my notes. But then we cut to they suddenly interrupted by the appearance of Grissom, who is with the head of police from Manchester, a man called Oldroyd. Now I've got his name as Gareth Oldroyd, and I can't remember if I misread that. So
no, it is Gareth.
Gareth,
because that again will be something that pays off later.
Okay, yeah, because I did write just Gareth at one point, and I'm like, "Who the bloody hell's Gareth?" And then I'll just refer to him as Oldroyd for the rest of it. So Grissom is with the head of police, Gareth Oldroyd from Manchester, and there's plenty of eye acting from Michael French, who goes, "Ooh, Slade might recognises the name in this guy." And Grissom talks about a man called Lenny Gebler, who is due to collect a bunch of diamonds known as the Latham diamonds, which are worth around $2 million.
Sometimes 90s things are very 90s, and 2 million really doesn't sound like a lot of money anymore. I laughed out loud that this was the biggest haul they'd ever had for 2 million.
My favourite thing about this is the name Lenny Gebler.
It is a good name.
He's a fence called. It sounds like something from a 19 whatever Jimmy Cagney. Lenny Gebler, see, just like a fence from north of Watford.
He sounds like he knows Jake Bullitt.
Yeah. He sounds like an informant that would be shining the shoes of the detective, and he'd get the dollar bill and just give him a bit of information.
Yeah, he'd be, goes, "Yo, tell me where Keith Dagger is."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith Dagger.
We need to get the Keith Dagger mentioning at least once.
I tried to avoid it by saying Jake Bullitt, and every time you say Keith Dagger.
Wait till we do the Keith Dagger spin-off, Mark. It's going to be great.
Keith Dagger Bragger hour.
Yeah, to be fair, if we all take on names during that, I would probably keep you as Magic Mark Adams just because the name just rings.
I hate everyone and everything.
Yeah,
Magic's dead.
Whilst they're talking about the price, Nikki drops the "well, actually" to false ears. Yes, so Slade has weird side eyes to Oldroyd. Oldroyd wants Holly to verify the authenticity of the diamonds, which I feel is perhaps not what Holly's hired for. It's never actually determined what exactly Holly's supposed to be doing. She's
Science!
Yeah.
Science! She's just employed to do science. And what I love about it is her lab is full of gadgets. She's fucking Q as well.
In this episode, it just shows everyone has the job title that could cover a lot of bases. Like Holly is science officer.
Science. Just science.
Oldroyd is head of police. It's just like, what you like, detective inspector, detective, constable inspector, DCI, anything like that? No. I am the head of police. That's all you need to know.
Top cop.
Yeah.
Top cop Oldroyd.
Yeah, I like the fact as well when we sort of gone, "Holly, I want you to authenticate these diamonds." Well, it's not really in my field of work, but can you do it? Yeah.
What I think what we see here is it's kind of a young adult fiction kind of designed world that doesn't exist. I mean, we are watching science fiction, but I don't know, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a simplified world where there isn't intricacies of job. And yeah, I don't care. I love it. There's guns, British cops with guns. We've said it 100 times. And yeah, I don't care. I don't care that she's just science and just whatever, you know?
There's a shot where it cuts to all of them sort of sat listening, and you've got our main cast and you've got some detective extras, and the blazer game in that shot alone is just on point. Obviously, you've got the Slade classic mustard jacket, then you've got Holly in a kind of burgundy trouser combo. You've got Morris, who's just in a very much like Burton's menwear suit, and then you've got Nicky, who looks like he could be going back to his manor to slap a butler after his shift.
There's behind them, like you've got everyone's wearing kind of black or dark but blue, with the exception of like Slade, Holly, and Nicky. The only person who seems to be wearing a bright tie is Morris. But then there's a guy wearing a sweatshirt, like a jumper, just like randomly, like no one told him it was.
He's the undercover cop.
Yeah,
the one that they've got.
He's the real Maverick.
Yeah,
he doesn't even wear a blazer. Take that, Slade, and
he's Jeff Maverick.
Yeah.
Oh,
Jeff
for fuck's sake!
They're all called Jeff, but they've got different names.
Jeff Slade, Jeff Maverick, Jeff Top Hat, Jeff Smooth,
Jeff Top Hats.
Yeah. And like Kate's younger brother, Jeff Dagger.
Yeah.
Oh, for goodness sake.
The Dagger brothers are going to clean up this city. Stab at the heart of crime.
The stab or jab. The stab jab.
You should both be stopped.
Hey, you're the one who made me host this after Bob Hobbolness, mate. So
I know. I regret my choices.
So yeah, as Grissom starts telling people what jobs they're to do, she mentions Slade's name, and then Oldroyd recognises the name Slade, and I've put in big bold capital letters, history. Back in Grissom's office, Slade, Oldham asks about Slade. He's not Jack Slade's son, is he? To which Grissom says yes, and then Oldroyd immediately doesn't want Jeff on the case. And here we get some kind of we get exposition that Oldroyd used to be Jack Slade's partner. After what happened with the father, I can't get involved in the son. Ooh, intrigue.
Yeah, there's a few things. One, in the great hero tradition of the father and son having the same first initial. And surely he must have known that he's coming to the one where Jeff Slade works. Because there's only seven people in the office.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he did. That was the whole point, wasn't it? He knew it was Jeff Slade, and he was planning on framing him.
Yeah. And,
yeah.
I mean, this actor, and quite a few actors in this episode, the actor who plays Lenny Gebler as well, it's a very 90s trope of older, kind of, I've seen a lot in my lifetime faced actors. You know what I mean? In this episode and the next one coming up as well, they're not pretty, or they're not very, they're not handsome. They're just like, I've seen some shit. It's a certain strain of actor that got hired a lot in the 90s.
So, the actor who played Oldroyd, Ray Lunnan, who sadly passed away in 2014, having a very, very, very brief, quick skim read of his Wikipedia article. So in 2001 he had a recurring role in The Bill. He appeared in several episodes of the Canadian sci-fi series Starhunter and had a recurring role in the short-lived revival of the soap opera Crossroads. But the bit that made me go, oh wow, was throughout the 90s, Lunnan continued to make guest appearances on various television series and voiced several characters in the children's animated series Budgie the Little Helicopter. And to me, that makes him badass.
Amazing.
I mean, if you're going to be remembered for anything, it's this and Budgie the Little Helicopter.
Which is one of those that you probably can't remember much, but you'll remember the theme tune. And the theme tune.
Budgie the Little Helicopter.
Bow, bow, banana, now. He's brave, a little hero. Bow, bow, bow,
Also,
bow.
I'm pretty sure the bill was part of most drama schools' deal. In the same way, like if you go to a certain college, you get a placement in your final year. Most drama schools, I feel like, in your final year for a few weeks, you go work on the bill.
Yeah, we'll be briefly talking about the bill a bit later on in this episode. But we won't jump the gun a bit later on. But we aren't jumping the gun just yet. So meanwhile, so with that, Grisham, in what can only be a moment of acting out a character, expresses that she can't apply the sins of the father on the son. And so far, that must be the only positive thing I've ever heard Grisham say about Slade. like defending him from it. But then again, though, I quite like the fact that we see Grissom on her own with someone who's not part of the main cast, actually genuinely defending one of her officers, which again feels like she's being out of character from the gruff kind of almost stereotypical police chief. But I quite like the fact that she does actually defend him, and I think with this episode particularly as well, I actually think that this episode does a lot for Grisham as a character in terms of how she actually can appreciate Slade's skills as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention that there seems to be a lot more of an exploration of their relationship, especially as we get more towards the end of the episode. It becomes very apparent that there's an unspoken understanding. Like there is a point in this episode, I feel, where Gresham knows exactly what's going on, but is going along with it because she trusts Slade.
So we cut to a bunch of criminals doing criminally things, like the stereotypical, all wearing black, sitting around a table. Someone's late. Whilst Grisham and Oldroyd are in one of the cars, we cut to Slade and Holly, and Holly recognises that Slade knows of Oldroyd. Meanwhile, we see Lenny Gebler arrive, as any kind of big kind of villain entrance can do, arrives by boat.
The long black coat game in this scene, it's sort of right, how do we instantly make them bad guys? Okay, well, Slade's got a bright yellow jacket. All these guys need long black jackets. Literally all of them are stood around a table in one scene and they've all got the same coat on.
They're all wearing black gloves as well.
Yeah.
That's your British crime drama baddie.
Yeah, it's like with Westerns when it was who's the baddie? Oh, they're the ones in the black hats. Who's the baddies in these? Oh, it's the guys in the long trench coats.
Yeah, so everyone's doing kind of cliched business, cliched baddie things. At one point Gebler does the whole thing where, again, this is very tropey. I mean, this is probably the first time I've seen this trope since the 90s, but, diamonds in a paper envelope get poured onto a little, I haven't got no idea, towel or something. I don't know what they are. But
little velvet bag thing,
yeah,
isn't it?
like a velvet bag thing. Yeah, and as soon as that happens, Grisham gives the order, and everyone storms in.
Yeah, they all storm in apart from Slade.
Yeah, so they all storm in. Everyone gets arrested. At one point, someone gets Oldroyd and puts a gun to his head, and Jeff Slade decides to slade it, for lack of a better term, by putting his foot in the car and driving right through a wall to save the day.
Yeah. This is the thing that gets me, is glass goes everywhere, and it's how is that not mixed in with the diamonds? Which ones of these are diamonds, Holly? I don't know, there's chunks of glass everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about tropes. The whole show deliberately plays on tropes.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very tropey show as it goes, for cop dramas and for time traveller stuff, I think. But I like tropes. I got no problem with things being tropey, as long as it's done well,
Absolutely. That's the thing, is with tropes and cliches and that, they exist because they've happened, and if they're done well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's the same in any type of show, and in stuff me and Mark are involved in wrestling, and sometimes you go, oh, this is very obvious, but if it's done well, who cares? As long as it gets the reaction that's needed out of who's watching.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. I think there are only a certain amount of things you can do. It's just it's the originalities and how you spin them. I mean, I think there's about 8 character archetypes in like professional wrestling, and the clever thing is just how you twist and make that, constantly reinvent those kind of tropes. So there's only a certain amount you can do. Trying, okay, we need to get these two people to really hate each other, but hate each other enough that they'll do it in a squared circle. I mean, but
I think this is one of the first episodes in the series which starts to play on that they're going to travel back in time. Which bits, they drop kind of very unsubtle hints that they're there somewhere before they've time traveled. Like we have the scene where they're in the car and Grisham looks back and goes, "I think I'm being followed." And it's just like, "Oh, that's them," when they've gone back in time.
Yeah. There's particularly with this and the episode we'll talk about next week. It's the series sort of is already self-aware about this, and I think also starts having fun with the premise.
Trained the audience, because in the first few episodes you hadn't clocked when it was them, but that one was probably there to make you feel clever, spotting that's got to be them travelling back in time, because it's established that they have already been involved in a weird, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. But I think that was a deliberately easy one to make the audience feel like they were a part of it, feel like they were clever, feel like they were involved and knew how the programme worked, I think.
As everyone starts getting arrested, Gebler, I was only here for a meeting. No one told me it was going to turn into the OK Corral. I just love how kind of like innocent, fake innocent he's acting. Yeah, Oldroyd is grateful for Slade saving his life. Holly verifies that the diamonds are real. Oldroyd then folds up the diamonds, and then he takes them with him. Gebler then tries to do a runner, fails, and Oldroyd then gives the diamonds to Grisham. On the drive back to the station, Oldroyd and Grisham are driving back, and Grisham, as Carl said, gets the feeling they're being followed. By who, do you think? Ooh. Yeah. Yeah.
The thing is, they're not that, watching the shot, they're not that far behind. You could probably see who's in that car.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but the conversation between Grisham and Oldroyd continues, where they talk about where they're going to keep them. Oldroyd makes a joke about putting them under his pillow. Grisham then also suggests, he's quite adamant about Oldroyd taking them, but the decision is to put them in a safe in Grisham's office. No one knows the combination.
Did the scene in the car, did that feel flirty to anybody else?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just the, you're going to keep them on your pillow? No, I've got a better place than that. It's like, okay.
HR.
Yeah, just like, and it cuts away just before passionate snogging.
Yeah. It's the Slade and Holly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so no one knows the combination. Talking about Slade and Holly, we then cut to these two are obviously not doing it off screen scene of them having dinner at a quite nice restaurant.
Yeah, this is just like, it's like, right, we're the police, going to go home, do this the other day. Where's Slade and Turner? In the restaurant, they're in normal episodes, getting tanked on wine.
Yeah.
Well, I know a couple of people who work in the police force, and I'm pretty sure they don't go to a restaurant like every night and have a few glasses of red wine before they get up to be police in the morning.
Yeah, but this is the conversation where Slade is in his usual self, and whenever Holly tries to question him about Oldroyd, Slade says he doesn't want to talk about it. Holly raises the suggestion about why the diamonds that were found in Preston are being sold in London, and there was no money being used. Holly suggests American Express. Holly leaves, and then Jeff stays to finish the bottle of wine because I think Crime Traveller is pretty much using this moment to foreshadow pretty much every every Crime Traveller is using this moment to foreshadow every Scandinavian crime drama from the mid-10s.
Yes. It's it's I was going to say the thing of just like, oh, I'm dark, I'm broody. No, I'm going to sit here and drink my red wine alone.
Yeah. As Slade goes home, we Slade goes home. We cut to kind of like a dark, shadowy figure and a syringe, which in TV language means, oh no, someone's going to get poked by something. And yeah, Slade is the one that gets poked and then gets drugged and knocked out.
So, here's the thing. You need to be a very, very good scientist and a very, very capable biologist to get the right dose for someone. Because if you get it ever so slightly wrong, you will kill them or it won't work. And this is a big TV trope that I actually don't like. All the other tropes I'm cool with, like the mean cop, the clever cop, the academic cop. But this was a lazy one. And yeah.
So,
couldn't they just knocked him out with a candlestick or something?
It's a glaring insight there, Mark, and that you know that you have to get a certain amount of something to knock a person out.
Well, unfortunately,
I know scientists. I don't know that it's a certain amount or anything. Oh, you're suggesting that I've done this? No, I haven't.
Crime Traveller seems to have a handle on different ways to knock its main characters out. Maybe they do think of using a candlestick in the future. Maybe, Mark. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, maybe it's in Michael French's contract of look, we're going to do a scene where you go back to the flat. Well, I'm not taking the jacket off. Oh, okay, well, we'll knock you out and then put you on a park bench, then you don't have to take the jacket off.
I really hope that Michael French kept the jacket.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
He's probably wearing it now.
Wears it around the house, yeah.
He's like how Alan Rickman in Galaxy Quest keeps wearing the latex head after.
I love the idea of Michael French running around his house with his kids, and his kids are playing Holly Morris and Nikki.
So do I.
Mr. French, if you're listening, please come on. We'd love to talk to you about it. Next day, Grisham and Oldroyd are in her office, and there's something has happened, and Holly is listening through a box of tricks, doing the Q thing with a little small listening device held against the window, which, if anyone turned to face the office, would see exactly what she's doing, which she's currently eavesdropping on Grisham and Oldroyd, because the diamonds are gone.
It's like a cross between a 90s tape player and a stethoscope, and I like it, and I want one.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I don't know how I got my hands on this, somebody gave me a thing you get in the cinema, like a hearing loop, which just increases the volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I went wandering around town with it on. It just looked like a Walkman, and I could hear conversations going on in houses. So yeah, it was a great day for young Carl, just wandering around ooh, nothing scandalous, but it was just quite funny. So when I saw this brought back some memories of that. But it wasn't like I'm standing here with a laser gun looking thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, Grisham pops her head round into the science bit and asks Holly where Slade is. I love the fact that immediately she goes, "Where's Slade? Let's ask Holly."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always together.
The line's cut out of, "Come on, you're shagging. We know where he is."
Was he around yours again last night? Holly says no, and Grisham also asks Holly if they were followed or if they noticed they was followed. We cut to Slade waking up on a park bench.
In the jacket.
And the teal trousers.
Well, those trousers are magnificent as well. We've been going on about the jacket, but the trousers, the yellow and teal combo is a brave and bold look.
But it works.
Oh, yeah.
Also, he wakes up and runs past what appears to be a Victorian nanny.
Yes, he does.
Yes. But yeah, he stumbles across, and then, meanwhile, we then cut to Slade's apartment, which is being searched. And Morris, of all people, finds something in the ice tray.
Which is so Morris. He's looking in one of the dumbest places he could possibly look. And he's actually stumbled on it. It's genius. There's some upcoming in the next few episodes. Morris does get a chance to shine, in his own way, and I like this in the sort of like he feels he's important because he's managed to do a thing. An old droid is quite supportive of him in this, and it's really boosting Morris's self-esteem, I feel.
Yeah, back at HQ, Slade walks in. Holly immediately turns and tries to warn him. Grisham comes in and does her catchphrase, Slade.
She does.
Oh, yeah, it's a good Slade as well in this episode.
So like they basically goes into their office where they look at the velvet thingy with the diamonds, and it's beads to it. Yeah, which confuses the hell out of Slade.
It's a good selection of beads. Lots of nice colours.
Yeah,
I've not seen them since the 90s. They're the ones you probably do when you're at like primary school when you make little necklaces.
Yeah, I mean they do interrogate him about it, and he says like, "Oh, I've been knocked out. I think somebody drugged me." And I mean, Gresham immediately thinks he's been out drinking all night. But there was one very simple thing: none of them look on his neck.
Yeah,
where presumably there's a puncture wound.
Well, pretty much Old Roy is in prime position to look at Slade's neck in this scene as well, where like he's just like staring at him. But yeah.
But why doesn't he?
Indeed. Well, the $2 million question mark, Carl.
Yes.
2 million.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you what, though. This scene and this whole setup really does feel like what I'd call a proper how done it rather than a who done it. Very Jonathan Creek, which I know we've talked about in the past as well.
To watch that.
Yeah.
I'm all about a how done it.
Have you?
No, I've not watched any of it.
Yeah, I think you'll really like it.
But yeah, so obviously we know, because we know the hero, he's obviously being framed. We know that it's not Slade, but we've seen him get attacked, and Grisham doesn't know what to think. That Grisham is the only person that knows the safe combination, and then says it out loud.
Yeah, it's not her proudest moment. I don't think that one.
I think in terms of writing as well. I mean, it pays off, but I think on the rewatch, I don't know. It's a lot more kind of clunky. Like it's like Horowitz didn't exactly know how to get Slade to know the combination, because. Well, then again, though, Grisham could easily just change it afterwards. But I don't know, just something weird about Grisham just saying the combination to Slade, which again pays off. But I don't know, there's just something weird about the way it's done.
Yeah, and then we get the greatest escape.
Yeah, well, just before that, Old Roy mentions Slade's dad. And then Grisham shows the bank balance, and that there's suddenly 25,000. I think it's 25,000 pounds has just appeared in his account over the last 2 days.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me. Is he's sort of over the last 2 days he's had this money put in 2 days ago. Now he was out drinking last night. Presumably, mind you, this was the 90s. Maybe you couldn't check.
Yeah, I think you didn't have your app, did you? You had to go with your bank book.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of money that you had. I mean,
you could do it in a cash machine at this point, couldn't you?
Yeah.
True, but then again, do you think Slade uses cash? I'm assuming Slade would be someone.
Do you think Slade got Holly to pay for all of it?
Maybe.
I know. I bet you Slade loves chip and pin.
Oh yeah.
And using his phone to pay for stuff. Yeah, I reckon he's a proper kind of like cashless. I think the moment he could be cashless, he'd gone cashless. Yeah, but yeah, I think with that, yeah, I mean, I was what 11, 12 in 1997. I didn't even know how to check a bank balance. I'm assuming it's just not as easy as possible. I mean, I'm on my online banking daily, with the app and
Yeah,
stuff.
me too.
Yeah.
The amount I can see how much money I'm accidentally spending, accidentally. But yeah, I think it's probably like if like £25,000 just suddenly turned up in my bank balance, I think if a penny goes, I know about it.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, I have no idea how the hell I would be able to check that. So that I can buy that. I can buy him not realizing that's happened. One day, no, but
The thing I've noticed is, because again I've got this playing in the background as we're talking, is they hand him his bank balance, and it's the statement of account is sheet number 296. It's like, my God, man, get some control.
it's all the bottles of wine he apparently drinks. And as Carl said, it's the escape of the century where the alarm suddenly goes off. People are suddenly distracted. Slade pushes old droid, runs, and then pretty much carries on in the corridor. Morris has a very comedic run-in with a mail trolley.
Yeah, it's that weird thing of he's got that look of, oh my God, I can't stop, but he's not running that fast.
Yeah.
But he takes a great fall.
Yeah, in the process, he runs past a very confused Gebler, runs past Frank, and Frank somehow is locked into a cage, which doesn't have a front. And I'm currently doing the car thing and watching this as going along. It looks as if... No, tell a lie. No, Frank. Yeah, I think Frank could easily have climbed through the serving hatch bit. But yeah, I thought it looked like from the angle that there's actually nothing in front of him. They could have just gone underneath his desk. But no, Frank is somehow locked in, and the camera lingers on the lock for just a little bit longer. And in the process, Slade finds a car door open, jumps in the car, and drives off.
Yes, I love this.
Which then leads to Morris, Oldroyd, and Frank watching him going away. To which Morris goes, "He got away." And Oldroyd just looks at him and goes, "Yes, I noticed that too." He then turns to Frank, and Frank goes, "I was locked in."
Yeah. Frank gets... It's weird because Frank has done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And there's just seems to be a few situations in this series where it's just like Frank's just a complete victim of circumstance.
Well, at least it's not catering staff this time.
Yeah. It's making him look like the crappiest copper you've ever met.
He makes Morris look good.
Exactly. Oh, and the revelation, the delivery of this bit where he's like, "Oh, I suppose that was your car as well." And the delayed, "Oh, no, it's mine." Morris has realised that's his car that Slade's just stolen. And I love that. It almost felt like he was playing the delivery of it, it was like, almost like the Morris being quite dumb thing got dropped. And it was just him going, no, it's not. That's mine. I just really loved that bit.
Meanwhile, we cut back to the main office. Holly decides to try and go and chase after Slade, try and figure out what the hell's going on. Nikki stops and tries to do the right thing and says, "I will offer my support as a character witness."
What a lad.
Yeah, lad. But at this point as well, as Holly leaves, Morris suggests to Oldroyd that they should trail Holly, because Holly is quite close with Slade, because they're probably knocking their boots. So, yeah, which, again, if we're talking about Grisham's uncharacteristic moment of concern for Slade, we have Morris's very uncharacteristic moment of intuition.
Yeah, it's quite weird that he's obviously in a heightened state here because he's fallen over, his car's been stolen. For some reason, that just triggers his detective gene. And when he suggests it to Oldroyd, and Oldroyd's like, "That's a really good idea," he looks like a kid who's made his dad happy.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we cut outside of Holly's apartments. Immediately, Slade sees her, and they chat for a second, and immediately Holly's, yes, you can use the time machine, which, again, seems out of character, again, considering because she usually has to be convinced to do it, but immediately she's like, yes, we can do it.
I love that Slade's big hiding place was standing directly outside Holly's flat.
As I think we will find in this and next week, there's a lot of hiding places around Holly's flat.
Which does maybe explain some of our queries earlier. We also establish in this episode there are 2 entrances into her building, which does help when we were talking about why don't they see each other and stuff like that. But it does feel like maybe a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't think the show is fully... It's got some amount of self-awareness. It hasn't got self-awareness of that massive plot hole yet, but I don't think it ever does. I don't think, but
no.
But yeah. So they go into the apartment. There's a bit where they pass poor Danny and going, "Hang on, weren't you just?" And then Holly just brushes him off. They go and
Slade does the action jump over the mop and bucket.
Yeah, the Slade jump, the slump.
And again, Danny isn't in this much, but when he is, he really matters. The actor whose name I haven't looked up, I'm afraid, his portrayal of confusion is great. And the character's loyalty is really lovely to see. He clearly cares about Holly. And he's also a little bit naughty, isn't he, with his bucket and mop? And
yes.
I think Danny is a character that I would have loved to have seen more of, but maybe not actually, because of how good he is in the very little amount of time you see him.
Yeah, so he pours the water on the floor. He struggles to remember how to open the door.
Pretends he's deaf, which is naughty.
Yeah, pretends he's deaf. They walk, and then the police run in. Morris then slips up over water.
It's a bruising day for Morris, isn't it?
I think somewhere there's a nice bit of like crossover fiction where there's like Pratfalls Anonymous, where Morris is sat talking to Harry and Marv from the Home Alone series. Yeah, goes like, I slipped on some water. You slipped on some water, mate. Like, look at my bloody foot. Look at my hand. I've got a bloody M marked on my burnt into my skin. But yeah. It kind of did remind me quite slightly of Home Alone, Harry and Marv at that section. But yeah, Slade and Holly turn the time machine on, just as Oldroyd reaches the door. They arrive at 1:30 yesterday, where they're just about to reach the warehouse. When they reach the warehouse, and then they start watching each other. They watch Slade's from upon high.
Not well hidden, are they?
No.
Kind of like they're stood on the top of the building, like behind a fire escape, in their bright red and bright yellow jackets, just like pressed up against each other, just on the top of this building. And obviously Slade slightly getting off on the fact he's just watched himself drive a car through a window.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes, I love a dramatic entrance.
Brilliant. I mean, that's the thing, though, isn't it? It's kind of cool to be able to see yourself do the cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be gleeful if I saw myself do something cool.
It's probably why half of why he quite gets addicted to time travel, where because he gets to see himself do the cool stuff.
It's watching yourself be an action hero.
Yeah. Yeah, so they see themselves and they see Grisham with the diamonds, and it's also here, it's revealed that shock horror, that it was Jeff and Slade and shock horror that it was Slade and Holly tracking Oldroyd and Grisham. How did you guess that, McCall?
I know, as a dedicated crime traveller fan, I just knew.
As they're watching, Holly and Slade then discuss about what to do next. Holly's slightly concerned about who attacks Slade, but Slade is much more concerned about who goes into the office overnight.
Yeah, it was almost. I laughed a bit of it. It was like, no. Here's what we're gonna do. Cut to Holly's taking a nap in her office.
Yeah. Nice moment where Slade kind of smiles at the sleeping Holly, whilst keeping lookout. But I think they're currently in Grisham's office keeping an eye on the safe.
Yeah.
And so Holly at this point tries to ask about Gebler, but then she's interrupted by a noise, and we see that it's Frank. And my note that I've added on here is questioning: does Frank sleep? He just seems to be there the whole time.
I was thinking that. When does Frank go home?
Yeah, he's on
Or
24 hours.
Is it a Bill Bailey and Hot Fuzz situation?
So there's Frank and his brother.
Yeah.
Nobody tells me nothing. But so as it's Frank, Slade then decides to have a look at himself by opening the safe. Holly asks how he knows the combination, and well, we know that Grisham told him like 12 hours from now. They get the diamonds and open the wallet. Shock horror, they've already been switched. I
like the delivery of that. Like, oh, Gresham told me tomorrow morning. It's like, yeah, you've wanted to say that ever since you travelled back in time. You wanted to say something like that.
I quite like the stuff like that. It's quite like the joke where it goes, oh, don't forget the annual meeting of time travellers will happen 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Get your pithy comments ready.
But yeah, I agree that's quite a nice little fun line. But also the fact that, again, as when Jeff seems to enjoy time travel too much, that he's probably got a notepad of like cool lines to say, and one of them was like 12 hours from now.
Yeah, I love it. I love this episode so much.
They've got 12 hours to go, and then they have to go and decide where they can stay. And for, if not the second, this might have been the second episode in a row, because we have learned that the first half of the series was slightly out of order. They decide to go to Slade's place again.
Yeah.
Because Slade is currently knocked out and dumped in the local park. I quite like the idea that they're actually trying to think of ways that Slade's not in his apartment, so that present day Slade and Holly can have a place to sleep.
Yeah, I like the fact that Slade's very, very au fait about the fact that it doesn't matter, I'm unconscious somewhere in a park, because he's all right at the moment, and presumably doesn't remember being unconscious in the local park.
I mean, I'd be quite upset that I hadn't had a shower before I went to work, but I'm a very different person to Slade.
I question whether that. I think it's kind of like a thing that if Slade's out of that jacket, like the coolness starts to fade. So the longer he's not in the jacket, the less Slade he becomes. But there's a nice little gag from Holly. He goes, "Are you going to get this place furnished?" Which is a nice little recurring kind of thing that she said about it last time. And this is the part where we kind of get a bit of exposition dump about Slade's family life. Holly asks about his father, and he's been a bit evasive until eventually kind of cracks, and Slade says that his dad's in prison and he hasn't seen him for 5 years, which was his dad's decision. And he told Slade that he doesn't actually want to see him until he's released. As Holly asks further, it turns out there was a £20,000 bank raid, which again, sounds like really cheap money in comparison to modern stuff. And there was a bank raid, and Jack Slade was in charge of the case with Oldroyd, but half the money went missing, and Jack got the blame because they found the money at Jack's place. Jack was innocent. Slade wasn't at the trial because he was at the company on leave. Slade wasn't at the trial because he was out of the country on leave. And Slade says he doesn't read the papers anymore because of the amount of press coverage that the trial got.
I liked that little touch. It was like, oh, I read it in the papers. Oh, you don't read the papers? Not since then. That was a nice little, showing that it really affected him. And it's probably one of the first times we see that something really did affect him.
It's also a little bit kind of bleak in as much as obviously there was already the thing with the sun in Liverpool at this point, but I don't think that in the 90s people had such utter disdain and and mistrust for the newspapers as they do in a modern world. So, I don't know, it's quite bleak that the papers are already being seen like this by someone like Slade.
Yeah. Holly then asks if Slade thinks that his dad's innocent. Slade says yes, but it's been 5 years since they've seen him. But what is happening to Slade is the same thing that happened to Jack. And Holly says that they're going to see Jack tomorrow. There's a nice little conversation about where they're sleeping, and Slade takes the settee, and Holly goes, well, it's either that or the tennis table.
This falls into the category of what I've mentioned in previous episodes, where the screenwriter could have gone, and then they go at it. They're like, well, it's either that or the tennis table, and then they go at it on the tennis table. It's that. It's like, I remember hearing a thing like in Friends, there was going to be a revelation that Joey and Phoebe had been hooking up the entire time.
I wish they did, because that would explain a lot.
Yeah. But I think this is kind of a similar thing in this. Like, there's just this undercurrent of, yeah, they're banging. We just don't see it at 7, 8 o'clock on a Saturday night on BBC One.
They then head to the prison to meet Jack Slade. Jack Slade, who you easily would recognise, played by Christopher Ellison, who you may know from DCI Burnside from The Bill, who then had his own spin-off series called Burnside. Yeah, so it's
another really famous actor, isn't it? That you would have, perhaps not recognised as well now in 2023, but a very, very famous actor that you would have recognised in a similar way. Michael French and the actor who plays Grisham, who's completely blanked, Sue Johnston, and the Demon Headmaster. They got some really good, recognisable, strong actors on this show.
Yeah, it's like with American TV, if there's ever like a guest appearance by a famous person, they make a big deal of it.
Yeah.
Like if, for some reason, the one that's really hitting me in the head at the moment is Justin Bieber turned up on NCIS. And they were like, and this week Bieber is there, or something like that. Or, this episode, Julia Louis-Dreyfus or Bryan Cranston's doing a guest appearance for the episode. This is at this time in the 90s, this was kind of on a similar scale, because Christopher Ellison had been one of the most recognisable faces in British drama, really, at the time. Burnside was a massive character. I mean, they gave him a 2-series spin-off, so it's, yeah, and the Bill never did that. It's, they were like, they kept bringing him back as well. So I think he left initially after only a couple of years, and then they brought him back again because they were like, yeah, we need something.
It's, yeah, and it leads to perhaps one of the better, or at least series so far, one of the best, like, guest appearances as well. Yeah, because immediately I think he starts telling him, and it's like basically very quickly they tell him what's happened, and it's like, bastards.
Yeah.
Did you take them? No.
It's immediately when you see the chemistry between Christopher Ellison and Michael French, like, yeah, that's his dad.
Yeah. But
he's worthy to carry the name Slade.
Yeah.
He's definitely another cop cliche, but a slightly different cop cliche to Slade.
Mm. Yeah, it's weird. So we'll talk about him a little bit, because I looked into it and I was like, oh, I bet he does just, straight to DVD. Same in the guy who played Don Beach in The Bill, and Craig Fairbrass and all those actors. They just do straight to DVD gangster films now, and that's how they make their money. But Chris Ellison is a weird one, because he originally is an artist. He's not an actor. And I looked into this a bit more. He started as like the door manager for, I can't remember what theatre it was now, but he did that purely so he could make money, so he could continue being an artist. And then he just kind of fell into acting. And he's played, he's done a lot. He's a big theatre actor. He's done a lot of Shakespeare. He turns up in stuff like Birds of a Feather. He turned up in this. He's done some kids stuff. But a lot of people obviously recognise him as Burnside, and now because of that, he does do a few of those gangster sort of films. But a bit of it is like, well, it makes money. He doesn't seem as, as into it as the other actors do, even though he said, like, oh, I met the Krays back in the day, but I'm not from the East End, I'm from the West End.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting one because it's almost like you meet someone who's got, for lack of a better term, resting bitch face. And they go like, oh, I'm actually quite jolly and fun, but it's my face. Christopher Ellison's got resting gangster face, in that he could do like it all and whatever, but everyone looks at him and go, you're either a copper or a gangster, or you're the host of Fort Boyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Fort Boyard, for fuck's sake! You just come out with some stuff that makes me go, ooh, right in the childhood. Fort Boyard was like shit crystal, not method.
Shit crystal meth.
Yeah.
No, Crystal Method is a band I really like, but what I was going to say was Shit Crystal Maze. And yeah, what of all the things to reference, Carl, you are the tap master,
Just to slightly bring everything down just slightly a bit as well. I think Carl, you said you was looking into Christopher Ellison, and you showed us a clip from Good Morning Britain.
Yes.
From early this year, where he disclosed that he'd been suffering from, I think it's pronounced aphasia?
Yes.
Aphasia for 18 months.
He's been struggling with it for about 18 months. And it was after Bruce Willis came out and said he'd been struck down with aphasia, that he decided he was going to do it as well. He was inspired to talk about it. Because he'd just been silent, and it's really sad to see this very expressive man, as we see in this episode. He now can barely speak. I saw another video which was earlier where he did speak, but now he primarily communicates through his wife, who sort of speaks for him, and it's just really sad to see.
I don't know much about the disease, but I think Bruce Willis's announcement has probably shed a lot more light, and again encouraged him to do that. One thing that at the time recording this in October 2022, but this is a note for future me as I'm editing this. I'm going to try and see if there is anything that we can share, perhaps like either causes or anything, just to, like, for anyone who needs to know more, or just want to, like, perhaps, I don't know, just donate something to, whether there's I've not looked into it yet, but if there's anything that, like, a cause to help kind of research into it or anything, then I'll definitely try and share that in the show notes.
And here's the thing, right? We don't have a Patreon. We've never asked anyone to invest any money on this. We do this because we have a lot of fun doing it. It's, for me, I very much differentiate this from any of the other things I do that I earn money from deliberately. This is a hobby to me, and I want to keep it as such so it doesn't become work, because I do a lot of cool stuff that I get paid for. And I think we did this with the Laredo thing when we did Series 6 of Red Dwarf. We've never asked anyone to chuck any money our way. We've never had a Patreon, we've never had a Ko-fi or anything like that, and we have no intention of doing that, to be honest with you. So if you enjoy Shipwrecked and Comatose, particularly this weird-ass run on Crime Traveller, if there is a way to chuck a few quid for a bit of research on this, please do, if you've got a few quid spare.
Yeah, absolutely. Although that was quite disturbing then, just the announcement that no matter how popular this show gets, we're never going to make any money off it whatsoever.
No one wants Shipwrecked and Comatose merch. And we'd go to...
Oh, ye of little faith, Mark!
And we'd go to a convention and get paid for that. If we were big enough, of course we'd do that. But we've never had... What I'm getting at is we've never had a Ko-fi. We've never had a a Patreon. We've never had a GoFundMe. We've never had any of that shite, and I don't think we ever will. But sure, I'd take a wage to go and do it at a convention.
But how am I going to peddle my volume of erotic fan fiction called Grind Traveller?
I would totally read that.
It's basically the exact same script with a few sex scenes thrown in.
I would definitely read that.
And then Jack Slade turns up.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
So Holly
Nicky
goes...
took Morris's hand and led him into the sun. Okay.
Oh dear.
But yeah, so Holly then explains to Slade's daddy that about what they did. It says that they put 2,500 into the accounts. Jack just goes, he was cheaper. $2,000 under the floorboards. Trace black, and they were planted. Holly then mentions Oldroy. Then Jack has a response to this, that Oldroy was a good mate until the trial and never heard from him again. Slade asks about the bank raid. Jack informs them that they were a professional gang that was after for ages, a group from up north. Slade mentions Gebler, and then Jack asks how they know him. So, they know him.
It's pretty much the same. Like, they ran the same thing on him, just with a different amount of money, really. But they were a bit more subtle about it when they did it to Jack, because, they gave him a load of notes when he went on a night out, and they traced it back to him. Whereas with Jeff, they stuck a needle in him and dumped him in a park.
Yeah.
And put the diamonds in ice cubes. So they've got a bit more of a flair in the last few years for setting up the Slades.
Yeah. Slade and Holly decide to, for their next move, Slade says he has to go and speak to Gebler. Holly says she can't go into the HQ because she's there. So they decide to meet at the wine bar later on.
They've got a very nice set and they intend to use it.
Yes, indeed. Slade sneaks into the HQ, and I generally wonder how the hell that people can get in and out of a police station without anybody knowing.
It does seem to be one large open door from the car park, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously later on we see what happens when with Nicky, and he's absolutely shocked that somebody's managed to get into the car park. But it's like, are you watching the same show as us? Because everybody seems to be able to get into this station.
Slade speaks to Gebler about the diamonds. Gebler says they've always carried a curse. Slade asks about why he's in London, and Gebler responds that he likes London and wanted to do some shopping in the same energy of, I like Salisbury, we came to look at the cathedrals. Same energy. Gebler remembers Jack Slade saying, he was a naughty boy with all that money. In a very, almost hamming up and chewing the scenery.
Oh, this actor is having a whale of a time.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
and they gave him a scarf, this lovely scarf.
As Slade gets aggressive, Gebler said he didn't have any money and he wasn't going to buy them. But then Gebler says that Slade's got nothing on him. He goes, I'll be out here by lunch. Meanwhile, we'll cut to Holly going around the cars and finds that Morris's car still has the keys in the ignition and turns the car on. And, you know what? I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that Morris is someone who keeps the cars in the ignition.
Well, this is the thing. It's like Morris seems to be perfectly fine. Like, yeah, this car park's secure. I can leave my car undone with the keys in the ignition. But yeah, it's just bizarre. The logistics of this police station.
Yeah. As Slade goes to escape, he sets the alarm off, runs past, and then pushes the tray that Morris trips over. As he runs off past Slade, then goes into Morris's car. Meanwhile, we cut back to the prison, and we see that Jack Slade wants to make a phone call, saying that he's worked it out.
And this prison warden is reading from my big book of dick prison wardens, isn't he?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And part of me initially when I watched this, we goes, phone calls are between 6 and 8. I was like, no, off peak. Yeah, no, that works. Saving a bit of money. That's.
Meanwhile, at the trendy wine bar, Holly reminds Slade that they need to head to the machine. Slade tells Holly to call Grisham, but we don't see what Holly tells Grisham, but Grisham is told to do something. And then we cut to the cells, and we see that Grisham lets Gebler go and goes, "There's been a development."
Yeah, it's odd, this, because I get the impression that Slade's got Holly to do the handkerchief over the speaker thing to make her sound like a, deep throat sort of informant thing.
Yeah.
Which is odd because it makes Gresham look a bit weird because basically she's just gone, okay, and we'll let him go.
Yeah. Like a weird kind of like, oh, this mysterious informant has told me to do something. Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
It's getting slightly out of character.
Yeah. I also like the casualness of like Slade is a wanted man and they're out looking there for him, but he's going to stop and grab a quick coffee before anything happens.
But you've got to keep hydrated.
With coffee?
Yeah, that coffee tastes like dirt and disappointment to me.
Nah, not to
Hey,
me, but,
hey, don't go slagging dirt and disappointment off. Coffee's great.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Do you know, I know grown-ups drink coffee, but I really did try. I spent a year trying to drink coffee. I kept buying different types of coffee with different flavours in it, and every time it just tasted like slightly caramelly dirt or slightly nutty dirt. I don't get the coffee thing. I just can't drink it. It's rank.
Just the statement of I tried for a year to drink coffee just pictures a montage of you really trying to drink a mug.
I tried so hard. I tried all the coffees. I met people for coffee and drank coffee that really hated. And every time I was like, why are you doing this? Because you want to be a grown-up. And it just doesn't, I just don't like it.
All you need is Morrison's Gold.
Just give me a cup of tea. I'll have a cup of tea. I've got a cup of tea.
We cut to Slade and Holly in the car. On the way somewhere, Holly's going, we need to turn back. Slade saying, oh, we're only 20 minutes. They're only 20 minutes away. Then we cut to a laundry truck leaving the prison. And it's here where we fully get the origin story to why Slade is a bit of a cavalier action hero. Because we get Jack Slade hiding underneath a moving laundry truck, escaping the prison.
I love it.
Two things about this. One, the guards don't even bother looking under the bottom of this truck. And two, Jack Slade's got a look on his face like he could have done this at any point during the last 5 years.
Yes.
And he just chose not to.
It's the Slade gene. He's probably just there. He's probably enjoying the peace and quiet, and then goes, I could just walk out of here anytime I want.
Brilliant.
As Slade and Holly follow Gebler, they follow him to a hotel. To which Gebler then goes to the tower room. And at this point, they then go to try and get into his room, and Slade does his usual trick of shimmying across a building, which he's done at least once before. And there's a nice little shot of Holly kind of just rubbing her forehead in disbelief that Slade's doing what Slade's doing.
It's great stunt work, though, I think.
It is good
both
stunt
times it was great stunt work, actually.
I like to think that they could have easily used the listening device from the next room along, and Slade didn't have to go out on the thing, and that's why Holly's got this look on her face, because they didn't need to do this.
No, they didn't. Funny though.
They don't credit the stunt performer. I looked in the credits. It's quite sad that they don't credit them.
Unless we're led to believe that Michael French did his own stunts, which I don't think he did.
Possible, yeah.
I think Michael French probably wanted to do his own stunts, but I don't know if he did.
Then again, though, as Slade crosses over a skylight and looks down, in a very kind of nice shot where he's actually walking across, like, I don't know why he walks over the glass. It looks like he could have just easily walked around it. But in a nice little, in a moment where he pays off stuff, he then goes over to a skylight, looking over the penthouse that Gebba's in, and then uses the Holly's listening device.
Yeah, it's a beautiful shot. I mean, they know how to pick a location on this series.
Yeah.
When they're in the lobby, I got stasis leak hotel vibes, and this was like,
Wow.
is this the thing? But that was Manchester, and I'm guessing this is London. So yeah, it's beautiful. Some of the shots are beautiful. Some of the locations are really, really good.
You know what? Yeah, you mentioned status leak, and not once have we mentioned the fact that, or emphasised about the fact that it seems that Slade and Holly are constantly drinking wine. Wine. But yeah, over here is that they're going to meet, that Gebba's going to meet someone at 7 o'clock this evening, and so that's when they then go to run to the apartments. At one point they go. This is where they go for the back entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Lol.
Yeah, yeah, and then they bump into Danny again, and this is where Danny is very, very confused.
But then he just goes, bugger it.
Yeah.
He just wants a simple life, and he's not going to ask these questions. I do like it when we talk about the next episode next week. Someone actually gives him a decent explanation as to why they've just run past him and are now running back past him.
Yeah, but then as they then go into the main room with the time travel machine, and they reset themselves into this, there's a very interesting shot that I don't understand why it's there, where Oldroyd, Morris, and a uniformed police officer fade into the corridor.
I like that though. It's showing that they were coming back to the exact moment that they left, because they were being chased and then they disappeared back in time before they could get to the door. So if you were coming back to that exact moment, they're going to still be out, because as far as they're concerned, they've only been gone like a minute.
So you think it might be the case that they're actually a lot more ahead of the watch than we usually have been. So it's not like to the wire; it's like a minute rather than seconds.
Well, they were behind them. So when they disappeared, they must have been like a minute or two ahead of them, chasing them round the building. But yeah, I quite like that. That it's just like, oh right, yeah, they've come back and they know what's going to happen. Oh yeah, but they were being chased by the police when they actually went back in time.
What do you think, Mark?
I don't know. Like Carl, I think I liked it. I thought the image was cool, but I haven't worked out. Does it work? Does it not? I don't know. I'm gonna talk about stuff that isn't this.
Yeah, I think if there's the one major criticism that I probably have about Crime Traveller is that it never fully makes sense when they this bit where they have to get back. The crossover doesn't work. There's just something about it that just keeps niggling me in the back of my head. Yeah, there's another one next week as well, which is covered before, but I don't know, it just drives me nuts. Yeah, so Morris and Oldroyd and the unnamed police officer head to the door. Slade opens the door to see Oldroyd and Morris, and Oldroyd asks him, "Why'd you do it, Jeff? Why'd you do it?" And then they go to the police station. Slade raises his fist and gets handcuffed, and then we get to the interview where Slade doesn't ask for any legal advice or an attorney with him. Morris is there, Grisham and Oldroyd.
Morris's glee here, when he's a lot like Rimmer. He tends to like other people that he knows that are arguably rivals. He likes other people's misfortune, and I did enjoy his glee when he had a colleague in the chair.
Yeah. But during this interview, Slade admits he's took the diamonds. Old Roy says, "Oh, he's just like his father," and Old Roy acts surprised and demands to know where they are. Slade says he doesn't know where they are, but he'll tell them where they will be.
Did either of you two notice in this, every time they cut to the two shot of Slade and Morris is sat behind Slade, he is staring, unblinking like a serial killer at him.
No, but what I did notice this was every time that it cut to Grisham, Sue Johnson's expression is more one of, like she doesn't fully believe what Old Roy's believing, and that she's definitely clicking on something. And this is what we was talking about earlier, in that this is like when, in terms of Grisham's kind of feelings about Slade as a police officer, because like, I mean, she seems to jump too much that Slade's guilty immediately, but this is like the first moment where you kind of see that perhaps she didn't fully believe it, and that she's very open to
the ear thing. Isn't that like he's?
I was going to mention that. Yeah, he seems to be. I don't know if he is, but it really does seem to be like he's trying to do some form of code.
Yeah, like a kind of a sign to Grisham, because she does seem to trust him, and I think from the very beginning she was probably suspicious of not Gordon, Gareth. I think from the beginning she was very... Fuck's sake, Mark. I think from the beginning she was very suspicious of Gareth, because she, despite her frustrations with Slade, she does genuinely trust him and recognise that he's been good for her for the most part.
But I do really kind of appreciate that there is a moment where I don't think it's supposed to be kind of subtle, because I think with the audience you're supposed to spot that Grisham is obviously not fully buying what's happening. Yeah,
it's interesting. For me, it seemed to be, because when he goes, "I did it," and Old Roy looks surprised, and Slade actually goes, "Why are you surprised by that?"
Yeah,
I think that's the moment where you sort of see Sue Johnson's performance of like, "Yeah, why are you surprised by that?"
Yeah, and I think anyone else, Grisham probably wouldn't have, like. Well, then again, now Grisham did suddenly release Gebler on due to a dodgy phone call. But they go to the warehouse and there's no one there.
Just before that, at the end of it, Old Roy tries to get out of going because he doesn't. He doesn't believe it, but she's insistent that he goes.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't look more guilty if he tried. And she's got this face of, "I know you've done it." It's really weird. It's almost like we all know that it's coming, but we just need it to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, so outside in the warehouse, there's no one there. We then cut back to Nikki in the car park, and suddenly Jack Slade turns up, and then basically demands that Nikki takes him to where Slade is.
Nikki in his flat driving cap.
Yes.
Oh man, I don't know if it's in the shot. I don't think you see, but it's like, I hope he's got gloves on. The leather ones with the little holes in the knuckles.
He's not, no, because he points at the restricted area. But yeah.
Oh, bless him. Oh,
maybe he's saving for some.
Yeah, maybe he just hasn't had a chance to put them on because they're in his glove compartment.
Actually using the glove box for gloves.
Yeah. Back at the warehouse, a car pulls up, and then we cut back to Nikki driving, and Nikki says that he's 23, has a girlfriend, and starts reciting the guidelines for hostage procedure because that's what he's read about in the book. To which Jack Slade looks at him and just goes, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Honestly, I adore the Nikki character. I think he's just so adorable.
He grows on you, doesn't he?
He really, really does. He's got a weird charm, and
the thing I like as well is when Slade's like, "Get in the car," he's like, "Excuse me, I don't think so." He's not a complete walkover until he's pushed.
Yeah. Not a walkover, it's a pushover.
Yeah, and I get if this ran for more series, there'd have been no doubt in my mind that that Jack would have come back. And if so, I'd have wanted him and Nikki to have been paired up at some point.
Mm.
And it just like Morris, you're with Gresham's with Morris, Holly, you're with Slade, Jack, you've got Nikki, and Nikki tried to be nice to him and get him as his friend, and Jack or completely flip it, have them really get on.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
Just have them really connect.
Brilliant.
Yeah, or just like suddenly be really, really chummy.
Yeah.
Back at the warehouse, the car doors open and it's Gebler. Gebler's there. Slade says, "Oh no, I'm working for Gebler." He says, and then Slade then baits Oldroyd to arrest Gebler, to which he seems very, very reluctant to. But I like Slade's glee. I like Slade's glee here.
The whole scene's brilliant. All of the characters are done really, really well. They've got a great set of actors here, and
the fact he lifts up his handcuffed hand and goes, "That's right, him and me," and he scratches his ear, but he's blatantly pointing at Oldroyd as well, just sort of like working together.
Yeah, and again, like Grisham kind of clicking on and saying, "No." Grisham going, "No, yeah, you arrest him.
It's your case.
Yeah, it's your case." Blah blah blah. Yeah, yeah, and I think at this point it's like, yeah, Grisham is completely on the same wavelength as Slade. There's a point where he goes, "Your move, Gareth."
That's the thing that came back. It's just the most British, just like in any other one, it'd be like, "Your move," I don't know, like
Clint
Mason or something like that in an American one. In this one, it's Gareth. It's the same as if it was like Keith.
Dagger.
Yeah.
Your move, Dagger.
Yeah. Your move, George. It's just such a British name to say in a dramatic fashion. I do like the fact that before Oldroyd goes to arrest him, and everyone's like, no, you arrest him. Morris goes, "I'll arrest him."
Yes.
It's like Morris knows that this is a great thing for his career.
Yeah, but he hasn't clocked on immediately.
Yeah.
But then...
No, Morris has got no clue.
Yeah. Oldroyd then walks over to Gebler, to which Gebler goes, "We did it! It worked like a dream!"
How is this man a master criminal?
Yeah. To which Oldroyd says, shut up, and then starts fighting over the suitcase that they've got. To which then Grisham goes, "Oh, yes, you've seen enough."
It's the fact he waves it in the air and goes, "I've got the money."
As they're Gebler and Oldroyd are kind of bickering. Jack and Nikki turn up. In the scuffle, there's a whole bunch of the suitcase opens, and all this kind of all money runs over to the point where Slade then approaches Oldroyd and Gebler, and then Oldroyd pulls a gun on Slade.
So we mentioned the Crystal Maze earlier, and this particular scene. Will you start the fans, please?
Also, did you notice where it's from the point of view of Nikki's car, but you see all the money flying around, and then this yellow jacket just kind of steps out of the shadows. It's like, if that was a shot on its own, like money in slow motion, and then Jeff Slade and the mustard blazer, it would have been like a John Woo film, but with this yellow jacket. Oh, they missed a trick there. They really did.
Yeah.
With a Crystal Method soundtrack. Yeah. There we go. There's another cool book. That's actually the first time I heard the band was in a John Woo film.
Oldroyd then jumps into the car, then starts driving off. Jack then takes the wheel of Nikki's car and then starts to play a game of chicking with Oldroyd.
Yeah. I mean, Oldroyd as well tries to buy Slade off. He's like, in front of everyone, it's like, "I've got the diamond, Slade. Join me." And like, in front of everyone.
Yeah.
Like, if there was a chance he was going to get away with this, that is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's But then old Roy swerves and drives over a bunch of kind of pallets, spins around, and has a very quite impressive looking kind of car crash.
Well, it's spectacular, and
Yeah.
you think about the budget that the BBC shows traditionally didn't have. That's a good stunt, that.
Yeah, I mean, they've always put money into their Saturday night, like, I don't want to say main event, but their Saturday night prime time things. Like, obviously, Doctor Who's had a big budget over the years, and Merlin and Atlantis when that was on the air. But even like before that, with this, Jonathan Creek had a really good budget and with massive set pieces. When they did Robin Hood, that had a massive budget and lots of stunts and stuff. So, and I think this, you may not, because this is shot obviously in the UK, you may not think of, stunt pieces because it's a science fiction detective show. But yeah, it's subtly done in that you kind of go, where you only sit back at the end and go, oh, there's quite a bit of action in this, isn't there? It's, yeah, and the car stunts, yeah, definitely a good one. With it, yeah, it spins, lands on its head, and everything, and it goes for a good long distance.
Yeah, and after that kind of settles, Nikki's car door opens. Jack steps out to Slade's surprise with a dad.
The thing that got me about this is obviously he goes like Dad, and then Gresham goes Jack, and Chris Ellison gives the weirdest reading of Kate that I've ever heard. It's just like you feel like could they not have let him add another one, because he just says it's so just Kate. But not with as much emphasis as I've just said it. It's very weird and quite oddly flat. But immediately, though, I don't know if you two had this, but just like, oh, they've got romantic tension.
You see romantic tension everywhere, Carl.
I'm just a romantic at heart, Mark. You know what I mean? It's
the Morris and Nikki fanfic that Carl has as well. No,
Mickey.
Have you actually written that, Carl?
We're
not doing a special on it.
Writing it, Mark. I'm doing a full radio production of it.
Good.
With the actors.
Good. Right. Why doesn't Big Finish do Crime Traveller? I think they should pick up Crime Traveller.
Definitely.
Michael French ain't doing much, and Chloe Annett's not doing much. Get him in. Crime Traveller.
I mean, this is the thing is, where I work at like an independent cinema arts centre place, and we do host Big Finish Day every week for the last few years. So we do get a lot of people coming in from Big Finish, like Nicholas Briggs is there, who's one of the main people behind it, where Paul McGann this year. So I am tempted to go up to them and go, you ever thought about doing Crime Traveller? Or, you ever thought about doing Red Dwarf?
Why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do know you have to mention Crime Traveller first, yeah?
Absolutely.
You need to know where your priorities lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
If Chloe Annett doesn't want to come back to being on camera, I'm pretty certain she'll be happy not that against doing audio adventures.
Probably not the ones that you're writing now, Carl.
No. I mean, Colin's already playing Slade. And Kurt's playing Holly.
We then cut to the typical debrief scene where Slade explains that Gebler and Aldroyd were working together, and the switch of the diamonds occurred at the time that they arrested Gebler. They needed Holly to verify the diamonds, and right after that was when Aldroyd switched them.
Yeah, it's there's bits in this I think that lead up to the next couple of episodes, because I found them just explaining it rapid as they are, quite comical. Like, and that kind of plays off, I think, in the next episode with just sort of like how easily Slade and Holly seem to come to these things. But the thing that gets me in this scene is Gresham says something which I don't think you realise because you get caught up in the whole thing of the episode, is how incredibly cold-blooded it is. on Aldroy's part doing it to him after doing it to his dad. And you're like, yeah, that is a bit sick, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the closest thing probably we've had to a nemesis for Slade so far in the show. We've not had any kind of recurring villains of this, but the closest thing that Slade's got to Moriarty, is Aldroyd, but he's gone. He's been arrested, so hopefully not the same prison that Jack is, because
I was going to say if they wanted him to come back in future episodes, then they've just got to do what Jack did and just hang on to the underside of a laundry truck.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
We then cut to Slade and Holly at her apartment and talk about having several people. I've got 3 people, 2 plates in my notes, but I don't think that's right. But they're also about keeping the door shut to the living room with the time machine in it. And it turns out that they are gearing up for a visit from Jack. Now, if this isn't Jack meeting son's partner energy, I have no idea what this is. This is practically, hi Dad, this is my girlfriend Holly. In all one name.
It's very like that as well. It's when she says, "Why couldn't we do this at your place?" and he says, "Oh, there's 3 people and 2 plates." I'm like, "Oh, you bought a second plate for Holly."
Wow. That's genuinely could be the reference. Yeah. I'll tell you what also I liked about this scene is Holly still can't cook. They established that she can't cook with the souffle, and she can't cook. And I like that. It's good continuity, that.
Yeah, it's good. It's good subversion in that he can cook really well, but his own father doesn't realise it.
Yeah, and I don't think he wanted his dad to know that he can cook either.
Yeah. But I quite like as well was when Jack turns up, he actually brings Grisham sent him a whole crate of wine, and that so he just gives him one of the bottles.
He's so casual about it.
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, you shouldn't have." He goes, "I didn't. Kate just gave me a whole crate. I can't drink them all."
It's true though. If someone gives you a case of champagne, you just I better start giving this away, otherwise I'm going to have a problem.
But yeah, and we gear up to the kind of the final scenes, and I love how this ends. So Jack starts talking to Slade and Holly, and he goes, "Something's been bothering me, or bothering him." And Jack says that he saw Slade at 9 a.m, but then he was also unconscious on the bench. Slade and Holly kind of cover and said, "Oh, no, we pretended that Slade was knocked out." And Jack was like, "You know what, that's what I thought." And then Jack mentions about that Holly's dad. He goes, Frederick Turner. And he goes, "I knew him." Oh, no, I knew of him. And he says, "Oh yeah, I know there's a book of his on time travel. And I saw it was in the prison library. I've never read it though. Never read it. I might though." And there's a kind of look between kind of like Holly and Slade at the end. And if that's not setting up an appearance in series 2 for Jack.
Yeah. I also like the subtle sort of, the reaction where just at the mere mention of his name, Holly will go like, "He was my father. Like, what do you know? Like, did you know him? Is there anything that could be done?" Because of what gets established later on in the series about Holly's dad. I liked that. It was kind of building for that. But Chris Ellison's delivery of like, "I know, but I'm not going to admit that I know," is just really, really good.
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting things they do, particularly next week as well. Like, there's not an interesting thing they do, or some interesting stuff they do with the legacy and the mythology around Frederick Turner, which I think is perhaps the long game for the show, I think.
Something else I like about this scene is they eat in the kitchen because they're, in inverted commas, painting the sitting room. Now, I'm going to correct myself from a previous episode where I said, how can she afford this massive apartment? She can't afford a massive apartment. She hasn't got a living room. And I like that. I hadn't clocked that until this episode. And I think it's actually a really nice thing that they're kind of highlighting that she sacrificed her living room so that she can have the machine.
Yeah, because the money troubles thing is the thing that keeps coming up
Yeah,
throughout
so
the series.
I stand corrected. I was wrong.
I mean, if I had a time machine, I'd happily give up a room in my house for it. Yeah, it's. But
Which
it
room?
is probably in my bedroom. But it is interesting because when you see the machine, because we do get a nice little shot of everything sort of sitting there in the living room, you do kind of realize, like, hey, it's taking up the whole room, isn't it? It's a wall right up to the ceiling. Yeah, it's a big old thing, and it's like the inside of the TARDIS. The TARDIS is massive. In the middle console of it's huge, and it's like one of those, but in a sitting room in a flat in presumably London.
Yeah, but and that is the end of Sins of the Father. With perhaps the best guest appearance with Jack Slade. And yes, we've reached the end of episode 5. So is there anything that we might have missed that either of you two want to mention? Or?
I think that this episode was a big setting up for series to come episode. Because we've got Old Droid, and I think there would have been a possibility for Old Droid to come back. Maybe Gebler might have been a thing to come back. We got more development with Nikki and Morris, in that Morris will be more than happy to turn on Slade. Got more development between Gresham and Slade. You've got the more relationship thing between Holly and Slade, and of course, the main event is Big Slade, Slade Senior, who I'm guessing would probably have come back at least 1 or 2 episodes a series if this thing ran. Maybe killed him off in like series 4 or something.
Yeah. There was definitely setting up for future appearances from him.
Yeah, definitely. But this is my favourite episode of the series so far. I mean, I like all the episodes so far, but this is one of my favourite ones.
Mark?
I think this is a very, very strong episode, but there aren't any particularly weak episodes in the series. I think each episode has something interesting, and it does have a lot of thought, like Carl says. What Carl said, basically.
Okay, so I think with that, that is a wrap on episode 5. We're well into the second half of this series. I can't believe we're over halfway. So I think with that, I think it's time to say goodbye. So Mark, where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
If you want to find me on Twitter or Instagram, it's the same handle, @MarkAdamsHC, and at the time of recording, at least, I'm only doing one other podcast. That's Chucky Vision, a podcast about the Chucky and Child's Play franchise. If you like your horror, please do give it a listen. It's @ChuckyVision on Twitter. And yeah, if you listen to Shipwrecked and Comatose, you can just search for Chucky Vision wherever you're listening to this, and you'll find us. We're great.
Carl, what about you?
I am not doing anything else apart from this one at the moment, but I am in the process of actually archiving my old podcasts that I used to do. I've been doing podcasts for quite a while. I started out with one called Fat Man and Hairy Boy back in like 2009.
Subtle.
Yeah. It was a 30-second decision, I'm pretty sure. But we did 2 series of that and a bunch of radio shows, and I'm currently in the process of putting them online. Also, a podcast I did for about 40 episodes called Death by Podcast, which was myself and mine and Mark's mutual friend, Matt, brackets, Malachi J. Matthews, close brackets, Davis. And that's all going to be up. And once that is up, which it should be by the time this is broadcast, you can find the links to it at allmylinks.com/Mr. Carl.
Okay, and if anyone wants to follow me, you can follow me basically my main podcast, which is Pick a Disc, which is me talking to people about music that they've listened. At the time of airing, I would have gone past episode 100. Onto my at least fifth year of doing the podcast, which is mind blowing. I've also got another podcast called Ask Us About Loom, which is about adventure games and interactive fiction. And also, you can find me on No Book Club, which is probably still on hiatus, depending if Yellow Jacket Season 2 hasn't started airing yet, where you can hear me with a guy called Kurt and some other guy called Tony. So you
may have heard of Kurt.
I'm hoping they have. I'm hoping listeners have. But you can find you can type them into a podcast app. You can find them there. And that's
so,
it.
Matt, I've just worked out, right, that around the time of this, we will be on roughly episode 100 of Shipwrecked and Comatose as well.
Wow.
Because we're not numbered 1 to 100. We're numbered by series. I've looked at how many we've got so far, and I've done a little bit of crap maths in my head. This might actually be episode 100 of Shipwrecked.
Wow.
Go team.
Wow. Yeah. Look at us celebrating in style.
Not too bad to say we've only done like 36 actual episodes of the Red Dwarf show itself.
38.
38, sorry. Yeah.
But wow. So this might be episode 100. Wow.
It'll certainly be around episode 100.
Wow, yeah. So no pressure on me to make this. But so again, so if you listen to this and you like what you hear, you can follow us on Red Dwarf Pod on Twitter. You can subscribe on all your podcast apps of choice. If you've got a podcast app that reviews us, just review us and give us 5 stars, because we're kind of vain in that way. And yeah, just say nice things about us. If you want to say not nice things about us, we can. I don't know. I can give you Tony Black's email address if you want to say nasty things about us. So yeah, and with that, all let's say is
Damn it, Slades.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at wemadethispod.
Do you know your Daleks from your Drashings?
Or your Zygons from your Zagreus?
Do you know what the TARDIS stands for?
And do you know which Doctor Who stories featured Kevin Grimlock, the cyborg T-Rex that became the Doctor's companion?
Then this is a Doctor Who podcast for you. I'm Baz Green, and in each fortnight I chat to my son Ben.
Hello.
And the occasional guest as we cover 60 years of Doctor Who on TV, Big Finish and more.
And I did really enjoy that one. Except that wasn't really actual pirates, it was Badger pirates in space, but it was still piratey.
Badger pirates in space?
Yes. But I am willing to make an exception for pirates this episode.
Donald Sumpter is amazing.
He's good.
I love the fact that he just pops up. He just pops up. Probably Rassilon. Probably.
Well, they do confirm later on he is.
I think they do.
Yeah,
don't
he
they?
says I'm Rassilon the Redeemer.
Of course he does. Bloody hell!
And he has the gauntlet as well, which gives the hint at that.
Yeah.
I'm nodding profusely.
Yeah, we're going proper classic Doctor Who as well, a lot of it as well.
Yes.
In a week has done more for the show than for the last 5 years.
I do like how Ross D. Davies is kind of the PR spokesman for the Centurion special. That's quite fun.
Yeah. And he's also saying, oh well, Jodie and Chibnall still have an episode left. I'm not going to tread on their feet, but he is 14, just so you know, for the filming purposes. And a week later, oh yeah, by the way, these guys back. Just thought you'd want to know. Find us on the We Made This network.
And all good podcast providers.
What about the bad ones?
Yes, them too.
Ah, good.
Because somewhere there's danger.
Somewhere there's injustice.
Somewhere else, the tea's getting cold.
You know, we probably should throw that tea away now. It has been sat there since 1989.